Hey first grade friends, and welcome back to another informative paragraph writing session. This week our job is the following. Let's take a look at our writing prompt. It says, in Earthworms, remember that's the informational text we've been reading, we learned that worms have multiple or more than one enemies. Write an informative paragraph to tell what you learned about worms' enemies. Be sure to use information from the pictures and words. Okay. Then, friends, you need to really think about what it is that you want to write. So right here, we have a picture that we can look at for inspiration. And notice how below this picture, we have a caption. It says, a mole's pantry full of worms. So I already know that a mole, this animal here, is one of worms' greatest enemies. So I went back to my page about moles, and I read it again. It says, a mole is an earthworm's greatest enemy. That's fact number one that I could start writing about. Moles sometimes eat 30 worms a day. That's crazy, 30 worms a day, friends, as they tunnel under the ground. That's fact number two that I could write about. It then says they store extra worms in a special pantry. Here's that pantry underground. They dig a tunnel and then they keep any extra worms inside of that tunnel. Here's fact number four. Moles keep worms from escaping from their pantry by biting off their heads. So notice how these worms are missing their heads. That's how the mole keeps them inside that pantry. This does not kill the worm. Its head grows back again and the worm might be able to escape. So this page about moles tells me a whole lot about one of worms' greatest enemies. So I think I want to write about moles, and I'm going to pull some of these facts as my teaching sentences. But if you're not interested in writing about moles, of course you could write about birds, because we've learned a lot about how worms are food for birds. We also know that birds pull worms out of the soil, right? And they kind of engage in this little tug of war together. So it's up to you what you want to write about, as long as you are teaching about worms' enemies. So I'm going to come back, now that I've decided that I want to write about moles, now I'm ready to draw my teaching picture, because our goal for today is decide what it is you're going to write about, and then actually draw your picture. Now, again, friends, you don't have this inside of your blue ELA spiral. You will once we get back from Christmas break. So you're just going to use a regular piece of paper and draw your teaching picture on the top. I really want to show that tunnel and the mole inside the tunnel eating those worms. Okay, so I'm going to draw, first I'm going to draw the tunnel. Okay, and then I'm going to draw the mole's head. He kind of has like a pointy face, doesn't he? Ugh. He's got little arms, boop, 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 boop. And of course he needs his eye and his mouth. And I'm going to label him Mole. He's the mole. And inside of this pantry, let's label the pantry. P-A-N-T-R-Y spells pantry. Of course, I could just go and look that up inside of my text. We've got all of these worms. Now, some of them have their heads, but some of the heads are chopped off. Now, does it matter if your worms look absolutely perfect, friends? No, it's okay. Just make some squiggly lines, and some of them you'll notice I'm drawing with missing heads. They got all these worms in here. Gross. Okay. And then let's get one closer. And then we're going to label the worms. Worms. If I wasn't sure how to spell worms, friends, it is all up in your prompt, or I'm sure your teacher can put it on the board for you. Okay, now that I've drawn a teaching picture that's going to teach my reader, first of all, that a mole is one of worms' greatest enemies, and second of all, that they store these worms inside of a pantry or this tunnel underground. Now I'm ready to go back and I'm going to color this in realistically. So the mole was almost like a light black is what I was going to say, or like a dark gray, you could say. So I'm just using my black colored pencil and coming in here, but his snout was like a little bit lighter. So I'll get a different color. for the snout. The realistic coloring is also going to help your reader understand what it is you're trying to teach them. If I draw this mole and I color him in purple and green, people aren't going to know what he is. They're going to be confused. So that's why we're trying to make him realistic. I know that my worms are different colors. They are brownish, reddish. So I'm going to use like 2 different colors. I'm going to make them like brown on one end, and then it moves into a more reddish color on the other end. We also learned that as we read through our text. Okay, notice I'm being careful. I'm not rushing because I want this to look realistic or real, so that way my reader understands what it is that I'm actually drawing and coloring. Then I'll finish them off with the other color that's got a little more red in it. Okay. And where is this tunnel, friends? Is it underwater? Is it on top of Santa Claus's sleigh? Where is this tunnel? If you said underground in the soil, you are absolutely correct and you should kiss your brain. You should go back and we're going to color the rest of this brown because this is all soil, right? And I could also label that soil. Okay. Notice how I'm going back and forth. I'm not scribbling, I'm going in the same direction. All right. So now my reader understands not only is a mole one of the worm's greatest enemies, but it also stores its worms inside of a pantry, which is deep inside a tunnel in soil. So friends, your job is to now decide what enemy you want to write about. Then start drawing a teaching picture to teach your reader about that enemy.